Hey everybody, in this video I want to take a look at graphing this quadratic. Take a look at finding this parabola. And we need to know the axis of symmetry for the parabola, and that's based off of the vertex too. Remember, axis of symmetry and vertex go together. So our axis is at x equals 1/2. Great, that's our axis. And if I'm going to sketch this, then I'm going to need to know the vertex. So I'm going to need to know what f of 1/2 is. That's 5/4 minus 1/2 minus 1/2 squared. So 5/4. Cool. But that's not quite enough. I need some points. And maybe I could find the zeros too. F of 0 is a pretty good point. That's 5/4 minus 0 minus 1/2 squared. 5/4 plus 1/4. 6/4. And 6/4 is the same as 3/2. That's good to know. That's equal to f of 0. And then we'll be able to say, based off of the axis, f of 1, right, going the opposite direction, and it should also be equal to f of 1. But we'll confirm that visually when we work with the axis. For right now, I think I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to look at the zeros. I didn't want to take and actually FOIL this thing out because, you know, fractions. Minus x squared minus 2 times 1/2 times x. So minus x, then 1/2 squared is 1/4. So 0 is equal to minus x squared plus x plus 5/4 minus 1/4. 0 is equal to minus x squared plus x plus 1. Interesting. Now this isn't going to factor now, is it? So it looks like what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go ahead and look at the quadratic formula. So that's minus 1 plus or minus the square root of the quantity, 1 squared minus 4 times a negative 1 times 1, square root of all of that, and it's going to be divided by 2 times the negative 1. Minus 1 plus or minus the square root of the quantity, 1 plus 4 over negative 2. I'm going to get rid of that negative sign. Negative 1, so these negative signs will cancel out, so we'll get 1, and then call it minus plus square root of 5 over 2. And we can't really do much with that. And this is the type of thing where we might fire it into a calculator to get an approximation. So, calculator, give me 1 minus the square root of 5, and divide that by 2. Negative 6.2, so I'm going to call it negative 0.6. And we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to take 1 plus the square root of 5. Oops. 1 plus the square root of 5. And then we're going to divide that by 2. And we'll get 1.6. Okay, so negative 0.6 and 1.6, those are our zeros, about. I think we're only going to be good enough to get like 1/2 in there. This is a lot of information. Let's start putting it on the graph, and I'm going to start with the zeros. Negative 0.6 is right about there. 1.6 is right about there. The axis of symmetry is at x equals 1/2. So let's draw that. There's our axis of symmetry. And where's our vertex again? Our vertex, f of 1/2, was at 5/4. So 1 1/4. 1 1/4 is right up here. And we've got our confirmation of what I should have stated outright. Oops. That negative, our parabola, is negative. It's going to be facing downwards. It's going to open downwards. It's going to be a cap, not a cup. So I'm going to do a little down. I'm going to do a little downturn here at our axis. All right, now we found some values of some points. Let's go ahead and let's plot those points as well. So we said f of 0 was 3/2. F of 0 was at 1 1/2. So that should be about right here. Wait, 5 1/4. 1 1/2. That can't be right. Something went wrong, didn't it? If this is supposed to be right here, and this is opening downward, 0 should be at... Oh, that's f of 1/2 is 5/4. Yep. So that's where our vertex is, 5/4, 1/2. Absolutely, we couldn't screw that up. So that's 0. Oh, there, that's why I said plus 4. So over here, I said 5/4 plus 4. That should be minus 1/4. So all of this is wrong, and f of 0 should be equal to 4/4, which is 1. And that's going to be the same thing as f of 1, right? F of 1 being equal to 5/4 minus 1 minus 1/2 squared. 5/4 minus 1/2 squared. 5/4 minus 1/4, or 1. So f of 0 is 1 is f of 1. That's better. So f of 0 is 1, and f of 1 is 1. Great, and I think we can go ahead and sketch this thing now. I'm going to curve, go through there, go down there, make it all negative. Curve, go through here, go through there, make it all negative. And the important thing right here, I was able to catch this by checking my work and thinking, is it consistent? And I knew that the vertex right here, this is the highest point, and I got something higher. So that means I must have been in error. So I went back over and I started looking through my calculations. And I started looking for the errors, and then I found them. And that's very important to do. You have to know what you're certain of when you're graphing these things. You have to know what you're certain of. And I think when we're graphing stuff like 5/4, 1/2, I think that's the stuff that it's easy to be certain about. That's the stuff that we should be certain about. And we should do that and say, look, I know that that's my maximum right there. Okay. Great job, everyone. I'll see you next time. And remember, always be checking.